I think after you see and hear Paulette, and those very powerful videos that were done by a young journalism master's student who came to us, you understand what keeps us doing the work. Because it's not right. And no mother should have to do that. No mother should have to bury her son like that. No mother should have to live with that burden. And these women, Paulette Wellington, Paulette Rose, Janice's mom, Millicent, they just stand up there and say, no, I want some justice. And for me, maybe that's the most rewarding thing, Susan, is the work. This work has given me back Jamaica. It's given me back a belief in my people, my land, the integrity of the majority of us Jamaicans, regardless of the circumstances that we're born in or grow in. The majority of us are decent, law-abiding people who don't want vengeance. They just want justice. Who don't want to be fighting wars. They just want to be living and loving and laughing. And I think that the ability to connect to that truth, despite the ugliness of their reality, is, for me, the most memorable part of the work.
Certainly, working with the number of people that I have in Jamaicans for Justice, the families, absolutely, the levels of courage and resilience keep me going. I think one of the most difficult things is being with people in their pain. And sometimes it is very difficult to sit in court while a mother has to listen to the pathologist detail the injuries to her son, the evidence of the beatings, and she just starts to cry. And what you do is you sit there beside her to witness with her what has happened, the support that you can give. That is part of, for me, painful and rewarding. The other part for me is that has been rewarding is just a constant reaffirmation of the power of a small group of people to make a difference. You begin in a point, for example, thinking, here we are at a coroner's inquest, this is our first. Next year we begin to monitor coroner's inquests and suddenly realize that we're seeing the same jurors. Every single case of ours that comes to the court, it's the same faces. And you think, no, something's wrong here. We just need to write a letter to the authorities to inform them what's happening and it will be corrected. And you write and nothing changes. And then you begin to go public with it and you say, this is happening. And you think, well, once people know, it'll change. And then suddenly you realize the Ministry of Justice is writing checks every month to pay these jurors. So they must know that year in, year out, they're writing checks to the same jurors. And so 5 years later, after having thought, well, it won't be difficult to get this changed, you take a case to the courts for judicial review, and the court rules, this is wrong, there must be random selection, and suddenly, now in the coroner's courts, you have random selection of jurors. That, to me, is again part of what keeps me going, is the fact that I've experienced it time and again, sometimes in small incremental ways, the way in which you can get change to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's both the most challenging and the most rewarding part of the work. Challenging because you don't, as Susan says, you don't think that you point out these things are wrong. Somebody's going to fix it. Right? Except they don't. They don't. And then you realize that you can do something to fix it. Whether it's a court case, whether it's opening your mouth, whether it's standing up beside somebody. And guess what? You actually have the power. I mean, I remember one of our most rewarding earliest victories was when they tried to prevent people from taking notes at a commission of inquiry. This was at the same time the press were there with cameras, but ordinary people couldn't take notes, and that was the ruling of the sole commissioner. And Susan and I had an anarchist meeting the night before, and decided, worked out how we were going to approach this problem. And we had our other members there. One of the lawyers came and he made submissions to the judge to say, please let these people need to be able to take notes. And the judge said, no, only the press can record this. And so on a prearranged signal, I looked at Sue, she looked at me, and the two of us whipped out notebooks and started writing, and very visibly writing, and along came the policeman to remove it. And I said, no, well, I'm representing Jamaicans for Justice Journal. And Susan was representing Oregon.
I don't remember.
And they seized our notebooks, and we walked out in great indignation. But it gave us the basis for the legal challenge. And it took a lot of courage. I remember being scared. But at the end of it, that judicial review went to the courts, and the judge says, no, that's ridiculous. The press get their right to publish based on the right of individuals to have and impart information. And so therefore, if the press is there, it's public inquiry, public's allowed to take whatever notes they want. And that's laid down in the law. So never again will an arbitrary decision be made about note-taking in any court in Jamaica, and quite probably in the Commonwealth we could cite it. So little victories, challenge, reward, and always the affirmation that, guess what? We can do something. We are not powerless. We're not voiceless. We can change it. We can stand up. We can be counted. We can face our fears. We can shrug our shoulders. We can report what we know. Because if we don't, we are part of the triumph of evil.
And I think, for me, this has been, the work in Jamaicans for Justice. I'm a teacher by profession. I had no knowledge of where this would take me. But what it has done is it has shown me the best and the worst of my country. And it has taken me into engagement in things that I didn't think about being engaged in. Legislative change in Jamaica. I now know that it's possible for us in Jamaica, individuals, groups, to make submissions to Parliament. I've helped to draft submissions. I've been in Parliament and helped to make presentations. And the feeling that you get when you engage and see the suggestions, the recommendations being taken on board, going into the legislation, is very empowering. Sometimes you're totally disillusioned and disappointed when important changes are not included. But it's to remain involved. It's to remain involved. And for me, that's one of the things that I want to see, is that increased involvement in our country, a knowledge that we have power to make those changes, to get involved and do things differently. Absolutely.
Well, I remember once when we were coming up, we had done a lot of, we don't only do police cases, we do a lot of work with children and children in the care of the state, advocating for their rights, advocating for better treatment for them. We also do work, we have a strong program on access to information, because being able to access information is the beginning of empowerment, is the beginning of your ability to hold your state accountable. So we do a lot of work teaching people about how to use the Act, making sure the Act is strong. And I remember the Act was coming up to review, and a young man who just suddenly turned up in the office and said he wanted to volunteer, didn't know how he could help. And he'd been at school with my son, so he came and said, I know your son Adam, I was in school with him. And I said, great, and how can I help? And I said, well, do you know statistics? He said, I love statistics, that's my degree. Because we needed some statistical analysis of the data that we had collected on ATI. And he came, took the data, did the statistical analysis, and with time to go to Parliament, we used his analysis in the submission. And I said, Denton, come with us. And he said, why? I don't know anything. I said, you know. You've looked at the data, you've looked at this, you know. So he borrowed a suit and he came and he sat in Parliament with us. And it was the only statistical analysis that was provided to the Parliament on the operations of that Act. And I was really proud.
Absolutely.
And I was really proud of Denton.